Aloha, YouTubers! Welcome back to another exciting, head-scratching episode of Insane Disappearances. Now, today is going to be a very special episode. I've talked about this on the Missing 411 Alternative Forum on Facebook. I've talked about it on my channel in previous videos. And today is the day. I promised you today I would be talking to someone who had the experience of all experiences when you go into a national park. Now, as you know, by watching David Paulides or listening to him on Coast to Coast AM or listening to some of his interviews on YouTube, he always talks about people who go in and never come out, the ones that they do find, they're found dead under mysterious circumstances and you can't seem to figure out why they're always found without a cause of death. And then there's the ones that do come back. Some of them don't have any memory whatsoever of what happened to them, like Keith Parkins, Catherine Van Alst, and the little children that are found in these crazy areas, like high up in the mountains. And then there's the ones that actually do have a memory, but when they do tell you what happens, they always have a very crazy story for you to hear. Now, when stuff like that happens, you got people who are skeptical. They don't believe you because if it's a child telling you this, they say it was their imagination, blah, 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 blah. But I'm here to tell you today, folks, I have someone with me today on the phone that can answer all of those questions. And I have it here, right here on the phone. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm just so glad I'm able to get a chance to talk to you and make sure everyone hears what you have to say about what you experienced in that national park. You know, because, I mean, as we all know, the Park Service always tries to keep quiet what really happens, even though they already know what's happening. So that makes me think that they're scared because they did lose one of their own. You know, I believe his name was, I can't think of his name right now, but they did lose a park ranger, and they covered it up, you know, just so nobody would figure out what really happens. Now, to start with my guest here, it all started when I did a video on the Brown Mountain vanishings, you know, which is coupled with the Brown Mountain Lights in North Carolina. And she saw the video. Little did I know she was actually heading in that direction to go hiking or camping, you said?
Yes, to go camping for a 2-day weekend.
Right. So, yeah, she was going up that way with some friends to go camping. And she told me that she would be giving me some information on what she experienced when she got there. Little did I know, the same thing that happened to most of the other people happened to her, except she came back from it. Most of the other people that did go there never came back. But this happened back in the 1700s. And she has a very, very interesting and very, very exciting story to tell. So let's pick it up from that point when you told me that you said you was confused at what happened. So let's start from there. So tell everybody exactly what you went through from the start.
Well, it all started out relatively normal. You know, I've been hiking since I was a teenager, and, you know, it's nothing new for us, but we had never been to the Brown Mountains. And we wanted to go and see the lights and do a little 2-day trip. So I had 3 other friends going with me, and we had all of our dogs with us, and we started out down at the Brown Mountains. And during the first day, it was fantastic. We had a great time. We saw the Brown Mountain Lights, just your average camping trip. Now, I had just found this channel maybe a month or two, or maybe it's been about 2 or 3 months, and I didn't know about any of this kind of stuff going on. So before I went out there, I showed them to my friends, and they also had no idea these kind of things were happening. So one of the girls had gotten very nervous about it, and she just kept saying she had a bad feeling and didn't feel right about going on the trail. And on that second morning when we woke up and packed up, we started hiking, and we came to a little clearing where a lot of other hikers are resting. She found a family who was going back the way we had came, and she decided to go with them. She was just too freaked out. We were teasing her. We thought it was funny. So it was just one gentleman, another woman, and myself with our 3 dogs. After lunchtime, we started heading out, and we're having a good hike. Nothing out of the ordinary whatsoever. And then I heard what sounded like a big crash behind me. And I looked behind me, didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. It was just normal. But when I looked back, I was on the trail. I thought maybe somehow my two friends had gotten in front of me, and I ran ahead on the trail, and they were gone. I kind of went back behind, and there was nothing. I didn't want to leave the trail, but, I'm calling for them, looking for them, and it's just like they vanished. Apparently, I was the one who vanished.
Wow.
Yeah, that was shocking.
Yeah.
And the trail looked exactly the same. It's like I hadn't moved, but they were just gone.
Wow, yeah, that is definitely a strange set of events. And from what it sounds like, it's almost as if they were able to warp reality to make it look like everything that was around you looked the same, but it's almost like putting some sort of bubble around you that had like one of those dome mirrors on the inside to where you can see everything but what was in front of you, to block you from everyone else's vision. Because you did say that your friend, of course I won't mention his name, he happened to look back when you guys were talking about TV shows, and he realized you weren't saying anything. And when he looked back, you were gone, but he saw your footprints and your dog's footprints on the ground. And from where he looked at, it looked like they just stopped right there.
Yeah, he actually has a photo of that because we were talking TV, and they turned back because they said, I just stopped answering. And they looked back, and they said, my dog and I were gone. So he has this picture of, three different very sides of dog paw prints, and then three very different sizes of human footprints. And then there were just two. Okay. And it's a very surreal photo. And they didn't hear anything. And I had tried to call him on my phone. It rang a few times, and then I lost the signal. Now, he said he got a call from me, and when he picked up, it was just a sound of static.
Right. Yeah. Because the one thing I noticed about when you were saying how they didn't hear anything, it reminded me of all the cases with people disappearing where sound seems to be absent whenever someone disappears. It's almost as if everything around them or around other people gets muted to where they can't hear the person being taken or put somewhere else or even being in the same area, but it's like you get sent to another dimension that looks exactly like the one you're in, but it happens so quick you don't even realize that you got put there, and because that happened with a story about a guy I talked about before. I can't remember his first name. His last name is Johnson. Young black man that lives right here in Georgia who disappeared, riding behind his crew because he worked for a DOT company. And the same thing like what happened to you happened to him, where he just all they found was change on the ground and his shoe dangling from a barbed wire fence. They didn't hear anything at all either, but there was no evidence of him being pulled over the fence, like DNA, clothing, anything. So he just vanished. So it makes me wonder what could have happened to him because he's never been found. This happened back in 2002. So yeah, that definitely answers a lot of questions. That it actually is something that does happen because my theories are obviously coming true. So, but anyway, continue on with, I guess, at the part where either where you left off at or the part where you said you was looking around and I guess you were trying to find your way, or trying to figure out what was going on. Start from there, I guess.
You got it. Well, when I realized that I was lost and that they were, I still didn't really realize what was happening at the time. But when I realized I was alone out there with my dog, I had the wherewithal to bring quite a few external batteries with me for my phone. And I started taking video and pictures of the area. Number one, just to kind of keep track of where I had been and so I didn't get as turned around. And then also, there's that in the back of your head of, this is weird.
Yeah.
And I kind of had that in the back of my head of, well, maybe if I don't come out of this the way I'm hoping I will, maybe somebody will find it.
Right.
As morbid as that may sound.
Yeah.
But as the day progressed, I kept feeling like, almost like the forest was kind of rearranging itself around me.
Right.
I would swear that I turned directly behind me, but the trail would be different. And, that even shows up in one of the videos I sent you, where there's that little wood bridge that appeared out of nowhere when all I did was turn back right the way I'd come.
Right.
I also kept, hearing things and like weird whooshing of air. And, luckily some of that picked up on the video. And there was one point where things got pretty intense in the way that, water showed up. One of the big things is we had to pack double supply of water because we were going to be near no trails that had water that we could purify. So we had to bring enough for us and our dogs. And almost the entire time that I was gone, there was water or streams around me, and which just makes no sense. I've even gone back and I've looked at the maps, and it's not supposed to be there.
Right.
Yeah. And, I don't want to be one of those people who ends up face down in an inch of water.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's
so,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. We had come to this one point, and one odd thing is the trail kept splitting and forking off. I think you see in one point I said quite a few bad words when I came upon another one that just split.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I kept trying to do things like I kept taking the left turn. And so I would get less turned around. I would take pictures of them, and I kept coming across more and more. And there was one point I had taken a split, and there were a lot of weird sounds showing up. My dog kept seeing something that I didn't see. She kept reacting and trying to pull off the trail, and she would growl, and the hair would go up on the back of her neck. And then, at one point when I heard this big whooshing sound of air, almost like a vacuum, for loss of better term, I started running. I just got just filled with a sense of dread. And like I had to run or I was not going to make it out of there. And I started running, and my dog coming behind me, and then we stopped and we kneeled down. And I kept seeing what looked like these bright orange colors that were, I don't know if they were following me or if I was just in their path. Some of those actually showed up in the video. In the video and in the photos. So I was glad to actually get some proof of that. And, I kneeled down, and I felt like the louder I was and the more I was talking into my video recording, the more these things were coming towards me, or it was more often that I'd be chased. A couple of times that I just dropped everything and ran.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, and it just seemed, in that area especially, it seemed to get very hazy, almost like it was foggy.
Oh, okay. That's definitely a new one. Yeah, that is definitely weird, because like a lot of the criteria that be in a lot of these videos, I mean a lot of the cases with people that have these experiences in national parks are bodies of water, and then there's the stillness of the area that you're in. You don't hear noises. You don't hear certain noises like the trees rustling from the wind and animals and bugs flying around. And the fact that, like you said, things are just shifting around, like everything's morphing around you. And just and then, like I said, the situation with the lights could be the brown mountain lights, but just during the day, and they probably just look different, during the day. So now, what about the part where you said you was seeing like a head in the bushes, or like in between the trees or something like that?
Yeah, now that's actually something that showed up in some of the pictures. I kept feeling like I would see something following me out of the corner of my eye, and when I would turn to look at it, it would almost look like I was looking at something underwater, kind of shimmery, and it would kind of fade away. at one point in the video, I actually take the video and switch the camera around so it's facing behind me. And I'm trying to see if I could catch it on the camera if I couldn't catch it with my own eye. And, I would get bits of the orange here and there in certain parts of the videos and pictures, but there is one very pretty defined and clear picture where it looks like there's a very tall, very lanky, slightly orangish-looking person off in the woods. I did not see it with my own eyes when I was there, but my dog, and you can see in the picture in the video, is she's kind of like she has attention towards it and going towards it.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Whew. Yeah. You definitely could have been watched by some nature spirits of some kind, or maybe some type of interdimensional beings, like they probably look like aliens, but different from the ones that we come to know about, like the big almond-shaped black eyes and the gray skin. It could just be some sort of, like I said, an interdimensional traveler that is able to basically is able to travel between his world and our world, and to us he looks transparent, so because he's not completely in this world or something. That I've heard a lot about them kind of beings, by listening to a lot of other interviews that I've heard on Coast to Coast AM. Now, another thing too, I remember you telling me about, from what I've already told people on my channel about what David Paulides expects people to do when it comes to them going into the park to be safe, and that's not wearing bright clothing. And I understand that you were wearing a black outfit.
I was. I had a black long sleeve shirt and really dark blue jeans. And I made sure that my backpack was black, and we even made sure our tents were black as well. And, we had bought a GPS locator. We had all gone in on it together. The only problem is the guy that I was hiking with had it. And I still wonder what would have happened if I had had that when I vanished.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is you still came out of that, But I think what it is that from what David Paulides said and from what other people have told him as far as the folklore behind the whole wearing bright clothing is that 90% or all of the people that tend to disappear were wearing bright clothing when they, went into the forest, the national forest, or the national parks. And so the idea of wearing dark clothing, because whatever it is that takes these people and don't bring them back, are attracted to bright clothing or bright colors. So he figured that it would be best if you wore dark clothing. So you actually did a very good thing. And I thank you for listening to my channel and listening to that video to hear what I'm saying, because obviously it helped you out. And the fact that in all the cases, when it comes to these people having these situations, also there's always a dog involved as well. So you had your dog with you. So that's another good thing about you being protected, and the fact that I remember you said that you have a friend who was Indian, has Indian in his blood, and he was saying how animals are basically like protectors for humans.
Yeah, he said his grandmother and grandfather always used to say that humans and dogs have had, this partnership that has gone on for longer than we can remember. And that his grandfather used to tell him that dogs would act as a shield for people when it came to spiritual things, chupacabras, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So now the situation with your friend. I got time to interview him, in another couple of weeks if he's up to it at that point. So maybe I should wait to ask a question about what he experienced and just move on, or you could probably give me a little piece of it. I mean, it's up to you. You think I should just wait until he says his piece, or?
Yeah, I don't think he minds if I tell you a little bit about it.
Okay.
He is a little trepidatious about speaking out himself. He has some kids, and we've been getting almost daily phone calls from the Park Service.
Right.
Which is, I'll tell you about that in a minute, too.
Right.
And that's another thing too is I have my concealed carry, and I brought that with me out there too.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
I did get scared at one point and shot that gun off.
Yeah. Now
that was pretty soon after I had fallen asleep on the trail at one part because I just was so tired and I'd been out in the water.
Right.
And I had kind of not laid down, but I leaned against a rock with my dog, and I fell asleep. And I woke up and I heard what sounded like a whole lot of rustling and scurrying around me, kind of going away from me. And the weird thing is my dog, who is a hound, loves to chase after things, didn't act like she heard or saw anything. Now, at that point, I did think I saw one of those orange tall things and shot off a shot out there. Obviously, didn't hit anything. But,
right.
It was just kind of one of those gut reactions.
Right. Yeah, because the thing about guns is that he also said, if you get lost and you're like in the middle of nowhere, he said it's best. This is something that cops do whenever they get lost, or anybody that, I guess, I forgot exactly who, but I think he said with policemen, if they ever get hurt or anything, they fire 3 shots into the air to let someone know that you're actually hurt or lost. So it's still good that you had a gun, and the fact that you had to use it because you got scared when you saw what you saw. I would imagine that if this being was transparent most of the time, bullets probably went right through him anyway, so he probably wasn't too scared, him or it or whatever you want to call it. So still, I'm glad that all of the things that David Paulides always talked about, what you should have with you when you're in that situation, you had. So I'm very, very glad about that. Now, the part about the park service, let's get to that part. Let's start from the beginning with that one. What was your first experience with them?
Well, there was one point where I was able to make it off of the trail onto some kind of little service road for the little water ducks behind these groups of houses. And I was just absolutely amazed and relieved to be out, and kept going down that road for a while, and eventually I came into a bunch of people's private backyards. So I went up to one of the porches that had a light on, and I knocked on the door, and it was a very sweet little old lady who let me stay the night on her couch, and she called the cops. And a officer and 2 National Parks rangers came out, and I explained to them everything that happened. I showed them the videos. I showed them the pictures. They then proceeded to tell me that I was dehydrated and I was seeing things, and it was my phone had been having issues while I was out there. The date and time kept changing. It would say it was 3 a.m. when it was bright sunlight out. And they said, it's just problems with your phone. And they had all of these little ways to explain how this didn't happen.
Yep,
Then at one point, one of the parks guys came back over after the interview. And at this point, my 2 companions who I've been hiking with had not been found yet. I was able to give them the information for the GPS locator, and they were able to eventually find them from that, because they also got pretty turned around. But he came over and he goes, "You need to give me your phone." And I asked him why, and he said that I had recorded areas that I was not permitted to record. I very nicely told him, come back with a warrant. I was not going to give up my phone, because it was very clear that either they didn't believe me or they wanted to try to hide something. And I'm sure you'll be able to show them in the video some of the things that were happening out there.
Oh, yeah.
But it ended with that. And the next morning when we woke up, about almost noon, I got a call. They found my 2 companions. They were able to find them through the GPS locator, and they had, a little bit of their own story. But we drove back home, and, we all kind of collected ourselves and compared notes and videos and pictures, and it started the next day. We got a call, very polite, we would like to do a follow-up interview, make sure you're all right. I talked to them, yes, we're fine, everything's great. Then we went about, I think, 2 or 3 days without hearing anything. And during this period, I'm going through videos and I'm looking shot for shot, pausing everything, expanding it, looking just as much as I can to try to figure out what happened, because we were just floored. We still really don't understand what happened. But the most interesting ones, I actually sent you the audio file of the voicemail.
Yeah.
And they keep trying to tell me, we need to conduct a follow-up interview. You have 48 hours to contact us. And it's not even their real voice. We all got the same exact message, just with our personalized names.
The infamous computer voice. Yep. Wow.
So they don't even have the guts to use their real voice.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say the name of the park ranger who's been contacting me?
Sure, because I'll probably mention it myself.
Okay. Well, it was a Mr. Jeremy Atwell, and he is assigned as my caseworker, so he calls it. And, I've had multiple discussions with him where he keeps trying to tell me, I need the video, I need the pictures, so we can make sure other hikers don't get turned around like you did. And, I'm starting to get a little pissed with these folks. And I told them, you don't have a warrant. And I actually lied, and I said I deleted all the pictures and the video just because, my phone is small. It's a very old phone. I don't have the space for that. So he really has no way of proving it without getting a warrant.
Exactly.
And which, I've given these videos and pictures to you, so there's the backup as well.
Right. Now, this is the funny part that I noticed about your situation, too. I have never, since I've been looking into disappearances in national parks, I have never heard of them conducting a follow-up with someone that has been in the park and had a very weird experience. It may be something that was never in the reports that David Politis may have been getting, like the Stephen S. Kubacki situation. I mean, as far from what he said in any of his videos, he met up with him himself, but it was never any mention that he was approached by anyone. I think they say he was probably interrogated, I believe, but any other person that I've heard of that came back from that, I've never heard of them doing a follow-up with someone. So this is definitely something new. I've never heard of this before. And the fact that they're sitting there trying to use reverse psychology on you, to make you think something that didn't happen, just so they could, feel better about what happened, and just making sure that it don't get out. That is just creepy. I mean, they'll do whatever it takes or say whatever they need to say in order for anything to get out.
That's one thing too, is they latched on to the fact that I had little bits of time that I couldn't necessarily account for.
Right.
Most of that being due to my phone's location and time kept changing, and it would, I would look at it and it would kind of glitch out, and then say it was 2 a.m. or 8 p.m. And they were also using the fact that I had kind of leaned against some rocks and fell asleep for a while at, you dreamed it. It was a hallucination. You ran out of water. You were dehydrated. You had a stroke.
Wow.
Because that was another thing, too, is at one of the points when I started running in one of those videos, I kept getting all these weird physical ailments. Like, I would get this really grinding pain in the left side of my head, and then I would get really hot and really cold. And at one point, I almost, I debated, do I want to kind of get in some of the water to cool down? Because I just felt so hot, like I couldn't handle it. And I ended up deciding not to, because I had the wherewithal to realize, if I get my clothes wet like that, at this point it was getting dark, and it was a good chance that I was going to have to face the fact that I was going to spend the night out there.
Right.
Like, well, when the sun goes down, I'm going to get cold. And that kept me from going into the water.
Right. And I see this also validates the mysterious evidence of people removing their clothing, and David Politis has talked about that a lot too, where they said like that they'll find their when they find the body of the person with no cause of death, they're always partially clothed, like they could have their boxers or their underwear on with no shirt and no pants and just their socks. So that definitely correlates exactly what he talks about in all his cases. And the fact that you don't know where that was coming from, you said it just came out of the blue, or you just started feeling hot and then cold.
Yeah, kind of like think about like when you have the flu and you have a really bad fever and you get chills and you'll get under a blanket and then you'll start sweating.
Right.
It was like that, but it was, it was like flipping pages. It was happening so fast, and I kept feeling really lightheaded. And that's the closest thing I can describe it to, is like a really bad case of the flu with a really high fever.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely strange. I mean, it makes you wonder what it was they were doing to you while you was in the wilderness. Because I mean, it's obvious to me that somebody had full control over what was happening to you. They made you disappear. They put you through all these little obstacles, almost like you was some sort of like a gerbil or a guinea pig inside of a maze that had to get from one point to another. That's what it seems like to me. Like it's almost like you was a part of some experiment trying to see how humans can react to situations like that. Because I remember I was telling you about another viewer of mine who went through the same thing, where she was in her room and she had been abducted quite a few times as a child, her and her sister. And she was in her room, and I think it was dark. It was at nighttime, and she was trying to find the light, but she could never find the light switch on the wall. And she knew where it was, because when you be in a place like in your home, especially if you grew up in it, you know where everything is. That's just a natural reaction. So even if you're feeling around on the wall in the area where it should have been and it's not there, you kind of get confused. And she said she went through that. So, like I said, it's almost like you was a part of some experiment that they put together, in the forest, and I guess you passed the test or whatever, because by you being able to come out of that and still have full memory. And that's the part that really gets me the most, is that most people that come out of that don't have a memory whatsoever of what happened to them. And if they do, they have a strange story to tell, which is you're that person that has a very strange story to tell, but it just validates everything that I have said or thought about or even tried to come up with as far as an answer, so this is an exciting time right now. I mean, to actually be able to talk to someone and get the word out there as to what is really happening, and to know that the Park Service is just still doing what they do best, and that's covering stuff up. But I can guarantee you, folks, this interview right here will blow all of that out of the water, because you can finally understand what a person goes through when they go to these places and they have a very weird experience. Yet they don't have a memory, but some people do. So, okay, let me see. Now I wanted to go back to the whole time shifting thing. Like you said, like when you was on the trail, at what time was that? Like 3:00? You said.
Yeah, it was probably right before 3 or right around that time, when we were just going along. We'd already had lunch, and last time I checked my phone, it had been about, maybe 15 minutes or so before 3:00.
Okay, so when you finally got out of there and you ended up in behind these people's houses, what time was that? It was like, how many hours was that?
Well, it was just past 8 p.m. by the time I got out.
Okay, so to you said you felt like it had been a full day or 24 hours, but it was just like...
I felt like I'd been out there at least 24 hours. The thing that kept throwing me is the sun never went down. Right. It would get really dark, and then it would get really light again, and then it would kind of shift.
Yeah, and I remember you said that the lady who let you stay at her house, she said that a lot of time shifts happen in that area as well, right?
Yeah, she said it happened to her husband multiple times, because she would go out on those trails because, it was right by their house. Okay.
And so there's definitely something going on that we're not fully aware of, even though we have these experiences. But it's like you try to figure out exactly why is it happening, why are they here doing this, why are these time shifts happening, why are they putting you in these situations where you disappear right in front of your friends, and it's almost like you don't even realize it happening. like I said, it's like some sort of mirrored bubble, or like one of those salad bowl bubbles that they put on top of you, where you see everything around you except for the person in front of you. So I'll be trying to wrap my brain around why they're doing it. It sounds like some sort of experiment they're trying to conduct, but at the same time, out of all the stories I've heard, when this happens to people, they don't come back. So I'm not sure exactly what they needed you for. I don't know if it was just they wanted to test you to see if you were a good kind of human being, because I know you said you were picking up trash and trying to keep the wilderness looking neat, instead of you. Because I don't know if they may have thought that you were one of the other kind of humans that want to put markings on the trees to kind of mark where you are so you won't get lost, or break twigs and try to create a fire. It sounds like something that elemental creature would do that is there to protect the forest. So I'm not sure if they are what you would call aliens or interdimensional travelers, or they're just nature spirits. It could be a number of things. So.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, you can see in the video too, the area where I was getting chased. Somebody had carved words into the tree. I almost wonder if that had something to do with it.
Might have. I don't think I'm gonna have to go back and look at that video because I didn't see that part. But yeah, you never know. I mean, it could be anything. I mean, because there's one thing I've learned about that in nature spirits. They frown on how humans treat nature. Like with the rainforest and what they was always doing to that, and cutting down trees for firewood and stuff. All this, anything that messes up nature or messes up the forest, they don't like it. And it's almost like they take what somebody else did out on every human that comes into the forest. But clearly that didn't happen to you, so that's a good thing. It's almost like you need these extra things to protect you from what they would do to you, like the whole thing about they're attracted to bright colors. So anyone that's wearing bright colors, they're the ones that's taken and never return. Or, so that means you would have to wear dark clothing in order for them not to take you. And then there's the one about having a dog present, which is what happens in a lot of these disappearances. In some cases the dogs come back, and the person doesn't, which mainly only happened to little children. They were the main ones that didn't come back after disappearing with the dog. The dog would come back and he would look like he was completely fed, and he looked clean after being gone for about a couple of days, maybe even a week. So a lot of the characteristics that come from your story and what you experienced in there, like I said, it just answers so many questions, and it just validates everything. And anybody that's a skeptic out there can see that it is not a serial killer. It's not a pedophile. It's not whatever else you may think it is. It is something that is on this planet, something that has been here longer than us, something that can make itself known when it wants to be known. And it could probably come through some sort of dimensional portal that makes them look transparent to us, but they're actually solid. I don't know. I mean, it could be anything. I'm just tossing it, ideas here, but it's just amazing to even meet someone or talk to someone that actually went through it, and you can actually say that it actually happened instead of you using a theory as to what happened. So, but yeah.
Well, let me ask you your opinion about what happened in the very end in that video.
Okay, go ahead.
That whole being able to, I came into that point where I could see the trail, and you can see it in the video.
Right.
And then it was this overwhelming feeling of if I went toward that road, that I was going to die or something terrible was going to happen. And in the video, you see me turning around back and forth, almost like trying to fight with it.
Yeah. Let's see. My opinion on that, I think that's coupled with it's like it's like having a feeling that something is not right about that area. I've heard of that happening with some people where they say that they just got to get out of the car, and them people end up not coming back. But it's a feeling that you get. It's like fear, like an instant fear you get. And the fact that you felt that, it definitely sounds like you would. you would connect it with that part of you that could tell you. It's all, I guess, like an empathic ability. It's like it tells you when something is wrong. So knowing that you're going in that direction and you just get a feeling, that could be what you experience. You could be empathic and you just don't know it. And the fact that you felt that, knowing that something bad was going to happen if you went in that direction, and the fact that your dog felt it too, because your dog kept you from going in that direction, which is a good thing as well. I think that's what that could be. That could be something that came from you, not so much what came from the environment itself. It could be some sort of, like I said, inner empathic ability that you may have that you haven't had a chance to actually harness yet. So
interesting.
Yeah, because I get that way sometimes too when I'm in a situation and I just get this overwhelming feeling of nerves, like bad nerves or like a instant fear. It's just your body and your spirit and your and just whatever else it is telling you that, oh no, don't go that way. Because some people don't listen to that. They get this urge to want to do it because they're adventurous. But if you listen to that voice or that feeling that you having, you can come out of a lot of situations, that may happen to you that's bad because of a decision that you made. You overrid a feeling that you got that was negative.
That makes sense, and I honestly feel like the second half of that whole day was me going on gut feeling.
Yeah, and I think that could also be what saved you, in that area, because a lot of people, like I said, they're adventurous and they want to know what's down the road, because they say, okay, maybe that leads to civilization, and they say, oh well, I don't know, that feels kind of weird, but I got to get out of here. It's like you tossing between what you really want to do and what you don't want to do, and then you override that, saying that, well, I need to get home because and then you go that way, then all of a sudden, poof, you're gone. And I think that could be what it is that makes these people disappear. They are conflicted with these feelings of fear and that voice or that feeling that's out and that says don't do it. But you want to get home and you think that might be the way, but you don't know for sure, but you want to still test it out. So kudos on you, my friend. That was definitely a good thing for you to do, to listen to your inner self. If it told you that something bad was going to happen if you went that way, I'm glad you listened to it. So that would be my assumption in that situation. So, but yeah, it is getting down to the wire, and I actually have to really go because I got to get to work. I have to be there by 6:30. But I really want to thank you for giving me a chance to interview you and having your telling your story as to what happened. And I hope that this video will open the eyes of a lot of people who tend to think.
That's what I'm hoping. This is important, and it scares me how much they're trying to make me think that it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's almost like they're thinking they don't want to cause a public panic, and they don't. But my thing is, millions and millions of dollars get poured into the national parks, for them to preserve how the monuments look, because they've been there for thousands of years. I understand that, and you don't want the tourists to stop coming. But if you got people disappearing in your parks, why would you want it to keep happening? I understand if you can't control what they do. I understand if you're scared because of what happened to that park ranger that disappeared and was never found. But if you want to keep your tourists from coming back to your parks, you need to let these people know what you need to do to stay safe in your parks. Even if you have to constantly wear dark clothing or have a gun on you, have a GPS locator, have a whatever, have a dog with you, stay in a tight group. And see, that's another thing that I noticed too, with the group that you was in. The fact that you was with that group, how far behind would you say were you from the other two people that you was with? Were you like kind of like a couple of feet behind, a couple of steps? Were you like back to back? How would you say that?
I would say we were a couple of feet apart, enough room where our dogs weren't tripping over each other on the leashes.
Right.
But we were not that far apart. I mean, we were holding conversation about, superhero TV shows
right.
without having to yell, and we weren't having to talk more than in our normal voice.
Right. Yeah, because that's one thing I've always heard David Paulides say. If you're gonna go out there, always go with a group. But the main thing he said, don't fall behind or don't get ahead of anyone. So I think in your situation, it happened in both areas. Your friends got ahead of you, and you fell behind a couple of feet. And I know you said because of your dogs, you didn't want them to trip over the leashes and everything, or bump into each other. But when you're going into a place like that, it's always best to stay in a tight group. You don't want to be too far behind them, because even if you were a couple of feet behind them, that gave whatever that was ample enough time to do what it did for you to disappear and for them to disappear as well. So it happened to both of y'all. It's just that it just looked different on both sides. When I
heard that crash, I stopped walking to turn around.
Yeah, and I remember you were saying also that you think it could have been some type of wormhole opening up, because did it sound like a crashing tree or the sound of branches being broken, or was it just like a boom like noise?
It was almost like the sound of, when a kid jumps down from a tree into the ground.
Right.
It almost sounded like that, but louder, and then there was kind of that whoosh of air.
Right.
And, we've been talking about wormholes, and I wondered if maybe could that possibly be the sound of one?
Yeah, I think that could have been what it was, especially for you to actually be walking on the trail and then you turn back around and all of a sudden, poof, everybody else is gone. And the same thing happened with them. So it happened on both sides of that trail. So a wormhole obviously opened up, but it opened up in a way where you couldn't even see it, because like energy cannot be seen by the naked eye. That much I do know. You can only see it if you use some type of device like a night vision camera, where it detects the energy that is invisible to the naked eye. So when you heard that boom, it's like that was the sound of a wormhole opening up to another dimension that they actually put you in, that was somewhat similar to what you were already in. Just like that woman I had told you about prior, who was driving in an area that looked exactly like the part that she was in, but there was no people. So it was almost like a movie set. Everything was where it was. The cabins, the trees, everything was set up the way it was before all that happened, but there was just no people. And I think, like I said,
wow.
that's obviously what happened to you. The area that you was in was almost like a carbon copy of what you already saw yourself, in the dimension that we in now. So it's almost like they created that just for you, or whatever the case may be. It's obviously some sort of world that you was in that was void of people. I don't know. Like I said, that's just me tossing it, ideas, but it does sound like that's what happened. It don't take much for a person to figure out what's going on if you have the evidence to back up all that stuff, and you definitely have it. So, yeah, wow.
I'm just so glad that stuff showed up in videos and pictures, and then I am so glad I brought so many external batteries.
Right. Yeah. What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna try and see if I can find a way to put it in a video, or find a way to edit it to where I can send it to my YouTube page as a video, and try to edit it along with another video of mine, so that way they can see exactly what you experienced. I'm gonna try and work on that as much as I can, but yeah, that's gonna have to be the end. And if like I said, your friend, if he wants to talk, I would definitely make time for me to talk to him. I want to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to interview you and tell your story, and I guarantee you, hopefully this will go viral and everybody will listen and hear what you had to say, and this will definitely change a lot of lives, and hopefully it'll put some peace, it'll add some peace to the lives of the people that lost their loved ones and never found out what happened to them. So I guess that's it. I want to thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I just want to thank you guys for coming out and watching my channel and watching this video, and I hope this will answer all of your questions as to what may happen to all these people. And like I said, once again, I want to thank you for talking, and I will definitely be contacting you again if there's anything else you want to tell the people. So I guess I will be talking to you soon.
Thank you, and you too.
All right. I will be posting this video sometime today. I might not be able to edit it. I'll probably just put it up there as like it is, because I can't go beyond an hour, with editing. So it'll just have to be as is. But I will be posting it, and it will be up there for everyone to hear and for everyone to see. So stay tuned for another episode of Insane Disappearances, and I will see you once again. Aloha, mahalo, and ahuiho.